Welcome to the Newton Knowledge Podcast. My name is Mark Singer, partner of Newton One Advisors, and I'm joined as always with my colleague Stephen Target, managing partner of our firm, and also Bill Dugdale with AB Bernstein. As always, we aim to provide meaningful content to our valued advisor community and clients who are interested in learning more about sophisticated insurance-related topics, focusing on estate planning and executive benefits. We focus our discussions on content that will deliver unique insights into the people, processes, and products that make our industry so critical. Newton One is a national life insurance planning firm delivering customized insurance solutions structured to help clients and their advisors engaged in solving estate planning, wealth transfer, business succession, and executive benefits challenges. We are a member of the M Financial Group, offering our clients access to the nation's most prestigious insurance carriers and innovative products available only through our network. And today we have the privilege of speaking with a dear friend, Bill Dugdale, advisor at AB Bernstein. We'll have the opportunity to learn a little bit about his work with AB Bernstein as a wealth advisor there, as well as learn about Grit Talks, a Delaware-based networking event created by Bill. And though myself and Stephen Target and Newton One have been part of this social event since its inception and somewhat biased, you could say, it truly is remarkable and unique in its own regards, and we'll elaborate on why, but it's really due to the people and the process and structure of this program. So to no further ado, Bill, how we doing?
Great, guys. Thanks for having me. It's nice to see you, Mark. Nice to see you, Steve. I guess a little bit about AB Bernstein first, and just kind of what I do and why I've enjoyed working with the two of you and Newton One so much as well. As stated, I'm an advisor with AB Bernstein, and I guess I work with families, foundations, and endowments, but my practice is really focused on individuals that have complexity, and therefore, the clients that I've served has really evolved towards business owners that are selling. And while I can help a lot of people, that's a great client for me because there is complexity, and thankfully the firm gives me the flexibility to work with clients many years in advance to help them think about the core of what they need to endow their lifestyle, the surplus, and many of the planning opportunities that might be involved. Of course, we don't get hired until they send assets over to be invested, but we have the opportunity to build a lot of trust, which I know is part of your process and your philosophy as well. Look, AB Bernstein's been around for over 50 years, and we certainly have world-class investments, and that's one of the reasons that I joined the firm. Using business owners as an example, the reason that they tell us that we get hired is because of sophisticated planning we do, the modeling that we can do, for instance, to model out a sophisticated plan that you might have with insurance, or maybe their trust and estates attorney might have, or an M&A attorney might have, and some of the other softer things. While I'd love to think that all my clients are really worried about asset allocation and whether we have alternatives, et cetera, when you really sit down with somebody that has complexity, often the things that are on their mind more are, how am I going to make sure my kids are productive members of society? How do we have difficult conversations or uncomfortable conversations around money? How do we make sure that my children or my wife or myself, that we all feel like we were educated? And so Bernstein has really put structure around that with our family engagement team, of course, the wealth strategies team, which does the modeling that I described, but helping to facilitate these conversations. And I think a lot of firms talk about it, but as I said, we have real structure around it, and it's something that we can deliver. And we're delivering for clients, in some cases, years before they actually hire us. And so it's really, really impactful and fulfilling, for us as advisors. Obviously we need to win business, but it's nice to have it feel fulfilling along the way. And so Bernstein, I landed in the right place because they seem to understand all of that. But yeah, it's a pleasure to I know you feel the same way about your clients. But part of all that comes networking, right?
Yeah, when you're not advising and performing your day-to-day with AB Bernstein and all the strategic planning and engagements that you have for your clients, tell us about Grit Talks and how that came up.
Sure. So we all need to network. We need to meet people, and I call it collision theory. We need to get out into the communities where we live and try to uncover the people that need help or the people that are working with the people that have the complexity that we described. And so, we go to networking events, and what I found was that while there's all, generally good people there, that sometimes the events themselves, either the speaker isn't so great or You were eating a piece of rubber chicken, and part of me was kind of thinking to myself, well, I think we can do better. So, Grit Talks came from an experience where in a prior role, I hosted TED Talks once a year. And what I loved about that was it was an opportunity to approach people in the community that I thought were really interesting and that I thought my clients and other people would like to hear from, and allowed me to get the opportunity to meet them, which was really fun, and to invite guests to come and enjoy it. What I noticed was, though, that a TED Talk, that's like a performance. Somebody that, Janice Nevin, for instance, who is our next speaker, she's the CEO of Christiana Care. Janice could talk for hours without any preparation about what's going on at Christiana Care or about being a doctor or other things. But with a TED Talk, it takes a lot of production. So when I thought about creating this event, I wanted to make it something that was easy for these very busy people to do. They can prepare a lot if they'd like, or they can prepare a little. And so kind of taking a page from inside the actor's studio, if anybody remembers that production, I don't know if they're still doing it, but we thought up 7 questions. And in my conversations with successful people, the part that I find most interesting usually is kind of their failures and overcoming it. And I think it helps to kind of hear about those things and try to get to the root of those failures, but also to understand things that you're not necessarily going to find in their resume. And so that's what the 7 questions in Grit Talks are really all about. And so the talks themselves are kind of like a TED Talk in that they're under 20 minutes, being respectful of our attendees' time. They show up for a half hour of networking in the morning at 8 a.m. They're going to hear a 20-minute talk, maybe some Q&A with somebody that they find interesting, and then they can network some more and beyond into their busy lives. It's been great so far. So, big shout out to Newton One. Thank you both for being sponsors. It's great to have you on the advisory board, and I think we're on to something pretty cool here.
Bill, thanks. We're really pleased to attend these events, and as I recall, was Grit Talks initiated in the middle of COVID? Did you have your first Grit Talks session while we were all kind of tucked in our homes and did it virtually? And if that's the case, tell us what that was like.
Yeah, so the idea came around before COVID, and we were really excited about it. And I think we had our first Grit Talk, which was Thayer DuPont, at first scheduled for May of 2020. And I remember when everything was happening in March, we were kind of thinking, oh, well, maybe we can have this in May, which is kind of funny to think back on, given everything that we went through. So not only did we not have it in May, we pushed it off until the fall that year, but we did do it all virtually. And that actually worked out really well. I think, in fact, our attendance was great during COVID, perhaps better than our in-person today. And what we did was we invited Thayer and our first few speakers, Mark Vergnano and some others, to come in. We'd pre-record their talk, and then we would do the Q&A live over Zoom. And it wasn't what we first anticipated. A little of the networking part was missing. But it allowed us at least to get started.
So walk us through how the event goes. The speaker comes onto the stage. They initiate the conversation with a anvil.
That's right. So, again, it was kind of fun to create an event from nothing. And, grit kind of speaks to, the failure and overcoming it. I just kind of like that word, and so one of the things I thought about was steel, and so that's where the anvil came from. And I had a cousin whose husband was a farrier, and so he makes horseshoes and stuff, and so he had an extra anvil, and we were trying to create props, and so I built a thing for the anvil to go on, and I wanted something to kind of initiate it. So yes, Steve, the way that it works is we announce the speaker. We also we announce all of our sponsors, Newton One being one. Then we announce the nonprofit that we will be supporting with the proceeds from the ticket that day. And then I kind of step off the stage, and the speaker comes out. They They hit the anvil for a little bit of effect, and we've created a pretty nice looking stage with the help of some other partners, including the Mill and my friend Evan Lober. Well, I should say the Mill, but also Nemours Theater and Evan Lober from Squatch Media have really helped kind of make the production look great. But they kick it off with the hitting of the anvil, and then we have this questions kind of on the stage up in front of them, and they move through the questions one at a time, kind of on their own. And we ask them to keep it kind of under 20 minutes. And then they strike the anvil again, and then we shift into the Q&A.
You've had some remarkable people as guests, and if you think back to some of the actual Grit Talk events, are there some answers that you heard to these 7 questions that, I mean, I think every answer that I've heard is really impactful. Are there maybe a couple that really struck you as being something that you can take away and either implement with the community, your family, your business?
Yeah, as I look back at all of our speakers, Chris Vadi, Tony Allen from Delaware State University, Rod Ward from CSC, Deneen Damon, managing partner at Richards, Leighton and Finger, Mark Vergnano from Chemours, and Thayer DuPont. They all have very different backgrounds. They're all incredibly successful in their own right. I think first and foremost is, what we heard was that, careers in life, it's never a straight line for anyone. And so, everybody had a pretty substantial failure that they could share. And, as I often say to my children, I rarely have enough information in the moment to decide what I'm going through is good or bad. And the things that feel really bad in the moment, like a failure, more often than not, actually, I find myself looking back on those, kind of being glad they happened. They're life events that help us to learn. And so, Thayer talked about an early company that he and I think it was his brother started that failed, and Mark Vergnano had some missteps in his career and ultimately ended up being CEO and chairman of Chemours. And Deneen Damon, an incredibly smart person, also happens to be a woman and the first managing partner at Richards, Leighton and Finger, chairing the board at Christiana Care. There were a lot of failures, along the way for her. Rod Ward, as well, CEO of some companies, some in Germany. And some real life experiences there that made him a lot better. And Tony Allen speaking about his mother and raising children in an environment where there wasn't a lot of money and a lot to overcome in terms of the society around them. And Chris Vadi as well. I mean, Chris basically invented the drug Jakafi, which is which literally cures a form of cancer and is the blockbuster drug for a local company called Insight. And now starting Prelude. I mean, he's had many failures along the way, although his successes have been tremendous. So, I don't think I have like an answer that stuck out. It's just we all have failures, and I think that those are what make us human.
I love the format. Every time I sit through or I've watched, I find myself thinking about the answers that I would give to those questions. And one of the ones that I think is fascinating, I don't know where you came up with it, is the question that is presented about what's the best gift you've received, but the value has to be under $200, and how that's impacted your life.
Yeah.
Because as we think back, that's an interesting monetary value. It's not that large, but some of the answers and some of the gifts that people have received that they consider to be truly impactful. I just love that question.
It's been a good one. I mean, yeah, you hear Deneen Damon talking about just like a little over-the-shoulder handbag and kind of simplifying her life, or Rod Ward talking about some work gloves that get him outside so that he can kind of burn off steam. And nobody really talked about anything that was really expensive, so I think they actually had to put some thought into that. Sometimes I wonder if that's not the right question, but I do like hearing the answers. I like gadgets, and so I was kind of hoping everybody would have a whiz-bang gadget that I would learn and then run out and buy. Interesting, I was thinking about this the other day, that how hard that question would be for me to answer. But I finally have it. I got it for my birthday this year. It's what's called an aura frame. It's a digital frame, and we had gotten one from my parents, and we can upload pictures on it, my sister and I, from anywhere. And when we gave it to my parents, we went through all our scrapbooks and scanned in pictures going back to their childhood and even their parents' childhood. And when you're sitting in their living room now, the pictures are coming up, and I find myself just mesmerized. And my wife and children gave me one for my birthday, and my wife has uploaded probably 500 pictures in it. And I'll find myself just parking in the kitchen. I'll make my morning coffee and just leaning against the counter and just watching these pictures of my children and of our dogs. And it's I think it's $150 or something like that. But the amount of joy it's given me just in the 3 months or 2 months since my birthday in September, I think it's awesome.
How did you come up with those questions?
From a lot of different places. I mean, Tim Ferriss, has some questions that he asked. I think I stole a couple from him. I knew I wanted there to be one on grit. I asked my friend, Johnny Gillespie, who has a yoga studio, wellness studio, and he's very plugged into mindfulness and kind of got his ideas. So I just collected it from a whole bunch of people, and kind of 7 questions came out of it. And, maybe we need to adjust them at some point, but so far they seem to be working.
No, I think they're great, and I think that's a great component to the entire. You use the word production, and I really think it is a fantastic production that's very different from a ton of networking events I've been part of, and I'm sure Steve's been part of a ton as well. It's different. It's a production, yet it's very comfortable, the environment. And the thing that I take from it and I enjoy the most is how honest I feel like the speakers are, because those questions are tough. And I don't want to use the word invasive, but you learn a lot about the speakers once you leave, because they are in-depth questions, and you have to think about it. And being a younger advisor in this community, I think it's been extremely beneficial for myself and any other younger advisors that want to be part of something that's unique and growing. And I just believe it has a great future, and it's something different. So that's kudos to you and your team, Bill. Thank you.
Yeah, look, I think there's nothing more fun in life than actually getting to know people. And we call it deep discovery in my business. You can serve your clients better, the more you can get to know them. And deep discovery really is about good questions and kind of uncovering what people's core values are. Yeah, it was very purposeful. I wanted to make it almost hard for somebody to kind of share their resume or to be self-promoting. For any listeners that haven't checked out Grit Talks yet, all the speakers are on grittalks.com, and it's a video library. We'd love your feedback, but we'd really love you to come join us. I think we had about 50 people in person last time. As I said, during COVID, we'd get 70 or 80, probably just because it was easier to get there by Zoom. But we think the room should be packed, and we want your ideas on different speakers, but more importantly, we want as many people and as much diversity in backgrounds and opinions and in life experiences in the room as possible, because that's what makes the networking part valuable.
We're sitting here today in downtown Wilmington, Delaware. Newton One's corporate headquarters is in Newark, Delaware. Newton One was named after Sir Isaac Newton, and one is our tip of the hat to the first state. So we're big fans of the state of Delaware, and I think there's a common thread in the speakers that brings us back to Delaware as well. I don't think that's just coincidence. So let's talk a little bit about Delaware and our connections to the Delaware community.
Yeah, so look, I was born and raised here. I grew up on Rodney Street in downtown Wilmington. I went to the Tatnall School, and while I've had the opportunity to live a lot of places, I think that Delaware is a fantastic place to raise a family, to have a career, and I just think that there's a lot of unlocked potential in this place. When people come to visit, they can't believe how beautiful it is. We don't have as much of the traffic and quite as much of the urban sprawl as you see in other beautiful places. So I love it. Like any community, we have a lot of wonderful people and a lot of causes to support, and most of us are building our practices kind of locally. So, I think we may branch out and have speakers that are from other places over time. But for now, there's a long list of really, really interesting people that are also tied to this place. I think that's kind of where we'll continue to focus until we run out of people that share that common kind of geography.
So let's look forward. Where does Grit Talks go?
Look, for now, I think we're just having fun with it. Again, I say I couldn't do this without, especially without, Evan Lober and without Rob Herrera from the Mill and the theater, and without you guys as sponsors. And so, I think hopefully we can get our 2023 lineup of speakers onto the website, and we'll see where it goes from there. But I do think it's something that's repeatable. I had somebody from the main line who attended one that said, I think this would be great in our area. We don't have any plans to make this a for-profit or anything like that. As I said, we're giving all of the ticket proceeds to the nonprofit of our speakers' choices. But I think we are onto something cool. So, I think one of the things that I struggle with is that there are a lot of interesting people out there that maybe don't have name recognition. And I think that one of the speakers that I'd love to get coming up is the CEO of the Northern A.I. DuPont Nemours Children's Hospital. His name isn't exceptionally well known. Obviously, Nemours is. But there's a lot of folks that maybe have companies or names that aren't recognizable. And so I still want to get people in the room, and maybe name recognition is important, but I think it'll be kind of fun as we start to get people just knowing the format is great and the attendance is great, to maybe delve into some of these folks that are a little less known, that are equally, if not more, interesting.
Yeah, I think a great foundation is set, and we're looking forward to the future of Grit Talks. We want to thank you for your time. This has been great.
Thank you guys for joining me in the journey, and you guys are great friends, and it's a pleasure to have you involved.
Thanks, Bill. The material and opinions voiced are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine what is appropriate for you, please contact a member of our team.